The stories behind the themes of 007, now on S4C, the soundtracks of James Bond that nobody does better.
These were landmark movies and a landmark character.
Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
You have to be bombastic. You just have to hit that audience with this like, boom, we're in for a good show.
So he strikes like thunderbolt.
You have to grab them and set the audience up where they feel this is going to be an exciting evening.
I think they're great works of art, actually. I mean, they were incredible, working to a formula. Always the Bond films were exciting, and always they had a good score.
It has that sense of fun about it. So that's why they were like they were. It's the dramatic process dictated the kind of song that we're going to do.
Goldfinger, he's the man with the Midas touch.
The Bond song at the beginning of the film is always something to watch for. You know, the opening of most Bond pictures generally sets you back on your heels.
Say, live and let die.
You know, they go hand in glove. You know, the song and the movie, it's become such an integral part.
You only live twice, or so it seems. One life for yourself and one for your dream.
I just think there is a marvellous opportunity to be over the top with Bond songs. They should give you lots of goosebumps. They should sparkle, and there should be a quality that just gets in your gut.
Diamonds are forever, sparkling round my little finger. Unlike men, the diamonds linger. Men are mere mortals who are not going to your grave.
Composer David Arnold comes to James Bond music a lifelong fan. Not only has he written the score for the latest Bond film, Tomorrow Never Dies, but has also unveiled Shaken and Stirred, an album of James Bond songs covered by contemporary artists. Both projects were labours of love.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Very pleased to see you all here. We're here this afternoon to unveil a very special pack. I'm very pleased to welcome David Arnold here this afternoon.
Luton-born Arnold first came to prominence when he wrote and produced Play Dead for Bjork and the British film The Young Americans. While the movie went almost unnoticed, Arnold was asked to score the $70 million sci-fi epic Stargate, and then in turn, Independence Day, the biggest grossing film of all time, for which he won a coveted Grammy Award. David was catapulted into the big league and realised a long-held ambition when asked to score Tomorrow Never Dies, and so become part of James Bond music history.
Bond music existed in its own universe, in its own bubble. It really didn't pay any attention to anything that was going on around it. There's so many other things in contemporary music that it completely ignored, and that's why I think they sort of stayed evergreen, because they never made any attempt at being contemporary.
In 1961, producer Harry Saltzman teamed up with Albert Cubby Broccoli to bring to life British writer Ian Fleming's gentleman spy, James Bond. The pair set about bringing him to the screen in his first adventure, Dr. No.
Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman
asked me to write the score for Dr. No, which, as you know, is the first of the James Bond films.
However, once the score was completed, neither Monty Norman nor the producers were satisfied that they yet had the film's title theme. Enter dynamic young composer and arranger John Barry, the man who was to become synonymous with the sound of James Bond.
I was one of the few people that was writing instrumental music that was successful. I received a phone call from the head of United Artists Publishing. He said, "We've got this Bond movie." And I went in and he said, "It's been scored. We don't have a title theme that is right."
I suddenly remembered this melody that I'd written. I dug it out and had a look at it, and I was absolutely certain that this was James Bond's character. And it goes like this. I was born with this unlucky sneeze, and what is worse, I came into the world the wrong way round. Pundits all agreed, and so on. I met John. He did the orchestration, the arrangement, and we went into the studio, and the rest, as they say, is history.
I stood in line outside the Pavilion Cinema in Piccadilly. Paid my bucks, went in and saw the movie. That's the first time I'd seen the movie. And of course it's the title sequence, which I thought that was all I was doing. And then as the movie progressed, I'm Bond, James Bond, and this thing keeps coming in. So, oh, this is great. I was paid £250 incidentally for this this thing.
James Bond, 007. Licensed to kill whom he pleases, where he pleases, when he pleases. From the elegant clubrooms of Mayfair to exotic island night spots.
They had a preview. I wasn't present, but I heard about it. And Terence Young, the director, took the movie very seriously. He really did. He thought it was a deep spy movie, and this is how they, you know, these guys worked. And the audience started to crack up. And I think Saltzman and Broccoli looked at each other and said, "Jesus, what have we got here?" The audience told them what it was about. And I know Terence Young was very distraught after the preview, because people were laughing and having a good time.
Hi, I'm Plenty.
But of course you are.
Plenty O'Toole.
Named after your father, perhaps?
Would you like some help?
Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman had hit upon a winning formula, and the song emerged as a key ingredient in establishing the style.
I always try to make them as sexy as possible and as theatrically camp as possible. There's very special songs, Bond songs, as you know, they're landmark moments when they work.
It's not something that you think about when you're a child, is it? But I think when you get to, you know, you do become, you know, you get to a teenager, and these songs are on in your house every Christmas and Bank Holiday and Easter.
People remember when they first saw Dr. No or Thunderball or whatever. I mean, that happens with any kind of nostalgia. I know when I'm driving in the car and I suddenly hear Diamonds Are Forever.
Like Diamonds Are Forever, I thought Don Black wrote a wonderful lyric.
Ready? Yeah, anytime.
Yeah. Diamonds are forever. They are all I need to please me. They can stimulate and tease me. They won't leave in the night. I've no fear that they might desert me.
Of course, David Arnold's album is just sensational, because what he's managed to do, he's kind of reinvented these songs. Whereas I thought they were campy enough and vulgar enough, he kind of parodied them in a way, but in a delicious way that makes them irresistible. So David McAlmont doing Diamonds Are Forever, you can kind of smile in a wry way about them, because they're sort of funny in their deliciousness.
love is gone. They lost love.
I suppose it's quite good to get a man to sing Diamonds Are Forever. I suppose if you look at it analytically with forensic precision, it probably doesn't make sense, you know. It's a bit like a guy singing I Enjoy Being a Girl, you know. It works because David McAlmont is such a great showman. I don't think it enters your mind that he's singing those kind of feminine.
It's like really classic and orchestrally expansive, and there's just a groove going underneath him. And my voice in the middle of all of that going on seems to make perfect sense.
People have their own ego trip when they start to do somebody else's music, and they say, well, I'll show them how it should have been done.
In a thousand surroundings, there was a time, and it always seems.
I was always approaching it from a fan's point of view, really. I'd heard some other sort of cover versions where they went like a million miles away from the original, which was all right, but it wasn't the sort of record that I wanted to make.
I wrote Born Free, which I did as like a parody on a Disney movie, and it worked. Then there was this huge record in America, went to #1. I was over here at the time, and it was Roger Williams with a choir. And United Artists sent me this version that had gone to #1. I couldn't believe it. I don't know whether you've ever heard it. It was the most pompous, overblown, terrible thing I've ever heard in my life.
And we sort of building and building and building until we get to that, which is kind of like the climax of the thing. And that I've seen your smile.
That's got to be my favourite bit.
A thousand dreams.
And then there was another one that I had, which was when I did the Midnight Cowboy theme. Two American pianists called Ferranti and Taisha did a version of it with piano, glissando, running all over the place. I mean, Midnight Cowboy, this down and out funky, you know, 12-string guitar harmonica thing, and they did it with this. That went to #1.
The record I wanted to make was one which recognised the sort of cinematic, melodramatic, over-the-top aspect of it that the originals brought to it, but you know, trying to find some way of making that relevant now.
Take my unfinished life and make it complete, just like the moonraker knows.
I think that's the one that we probably need to do work on, just that verse, because that you obviously know. If you do it with, you know, with a certain amount of love and affection and respect for where the, you know, where the songs were coming from, then I don't think you'll have a problem with it. You know, it wasn't as if I was, you know, kind of destroying them or radically redefining them, really. I mean, some of them have been, but I mean, I still think the heart and soul of the songs are the things that I've kept.
I missed that, I know.
Keeps getting better. I think I understood where the songs were coming from and what they were doing, and I knew the way I wanted to treat them, and I didn't think it was something that anyone would have any problem with, because, you know, I mean, obviously there are people that are bigger Bond music fans than I am, but I mean, I'm reasonably familiar with them, you know, and so I kind of just did it with a lot of respect for the music.
David was the epitome of generosity, and that he retained the original character, if you like, and character of what was there, but then added a total freshness to it.
Well, that's why I was trying to. I mean, I know that bam,
I'm
blam, blam.
anticipating that the orchestra's going to sound like as brash. You know,
Yeah.
in fact, even more brash than the original.
Always runs while others walk. He looks at this world and wants it all.
That's right, isn't it? Yeah, I wasn't really worried about fashion or other people's opinions. You know, it's just I had those songs in my head and I heard them the way that I heard them, and I just wanted to record them the way I wanted to record them. I mean, I didn't have an agenda about subtly bending the curve of popular music in this country, and making something different and making a big statement, because it isn't. I mean, it feels like a personal record to me because I've made it, but I never wrote any of the material.
Can you imagine writing something and somebody does it 20 years later or whatever and just throws a whole new light on it? It's very flattering and it's terrific.
He acts while other men just talk.
He's got this whole attitude towards this material that I don't have and never will have.
Yeah. And I think in a way, like, the song's about power, but it was all about admiring this person who gets any woman he wants and he can do anything. It's all about this guy's got a life without consequence.
I called up Don Black. I said, "How do you feel about writing a lyric called Thunderball?" He said, "Well, what's that?" I said, "I don't know."
I remember going to my dictionary to look up the word thunderball, and it wasn't there. So I thought, what does it mean? I mean, it doesn't mean anything. In the film, I think it was a code name.
Thunderball is a ridiculous song title. I mean, it's so... What is it, And I was flying down from London to the Bahamas, and I picked up a magazine, and it said that the Italians called... The nickname the Italians had for James Bond was Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And I thought, what a great title. That is just a great title. And so when I arrived down there, I said to come in, I said, it's just a terrific Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. You can't, everybody knows that's got to be James Bond. And we don't have to write a song called Thunderball, which, what is Thunderball?
He looks at the world and wants it all, so he strikes like Thunderball. But really, it's a bit of cartoon nonsense.
And then we called Tom Jones. He came in saying, he said, "What does it mean? Tom, just sing it, okay?" Don't let's get deep. Deep is not what we're looking after here. Just be convincing. Just take a note out of Shirley's book. Just be convincing. Just don't ask any questions. Thunderball, and it strikes like Thunderball. I mean, whatever.
And Tom gives it plenty of macho, machismo, testosterone.
Well, that's why I don't really want to compete with Tom Jones if we can help it.
He's Tom.
Yeah.
He's the governor.
I think drama played a big part in these songs. I mean, I remember when Tom Jones recorded Thunderball. I'll never forget it because on the last note he fainted. It's a very high note, whatever that note is, and he did it in one take. And he went on and did some other bits of the song, but he couldn't do that more than once. And now he sings it in his act to this day, Tom Jones. And I asked him about this recently, and he told me he'd lowered the key, which doesn't surprise me because it was so overly dramatic and theatrical.
He looks at this world and wants it all. So he strikes like thunderball.
It's a guy singing a song about a guy. It's a kind of vaguely homoerotic sort of song, really. It's a bizarre kind of lyric. So, he always runs while others walk. He acts while other men just talk. There's this guy following this man almost with a camera, studying his every move, celebrating it and sort of wanting to be him. It's dead obsessive. And when we first met, David Arnold and myself, I could tell David had a lot of ideas about how it should be sung in tune and in time, but he wanted to go beyond that, and I really like doing that. You sort of conceptualise a little bit, and you get right inside the song.
David Arnold has put his own signature to them, which is a hell of a compliment, because, John Barry is Bond. But now David has given it sort of end of the millennium touch. He's sprinkled a little bit of contemporary feeling to it, but lost none of the integrity of the original.
There's 8 people here working. The studio's booked. We lost today on Sunday. We've lost another day today. You know, we're all sitting around here waiting. The most difficult thing was actually coordinating people from, you know, different parts of the world, some of them in America, some of them over here, all on different labels, all in the middle of world tours, all making their own records. Logistically, it's a nightmare. All right, but listen, if you have any doubts, right, about whether or not you're going to be here or not, try and give me a little bit more notice.
Hello.
Yes, very good.
What?
All right.
Power chords.
Just for an example, with the Pulp situation, I met Jarvis for the first time this time last year. It sounded great. It's very lively in here.
Good.
We had a chat about what it is that I wanted to do, and he said about what he wanted to do.
Yeah. Is there a rough license near you?
And I played him a few tracks that I'd finished, and he really liked it, and he said he'd do it. It was then 2 months after that before we could get together again, because he was like recording his new album, and they were going out doing other bits and pieces.
Yeah, if they could just give me a quantity of whiskey.
All right. From start to finish, it was 6 months from the initial meeting with Jarvis to actually getting it finished. So we'll just do it from the top. Do you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, it's very comfy. Yeah.
That was mainly because I was waiting for him to become available from his commitments. I wish I could have done another couple of songs, but it was, you know, I think 2 years is long enough, and it would have been another 6 or 7 months.
All-time high. Yeah, we'll take on the world and we'll win. So hold on tight.
Iggy. Oh, it's David Arnold. I'm alright, how are you? Did you get the song?
In the world. Diamond of
It's a song about someone who's been around the world, you know, 1,000 times, has done everything that there is possible to do in the human experience. And, you know, they sort of come home from the end of this, you know, amazing life that they've had, and they get, like, sit on the back porch or something, and they're watching the sun going down, and at that moment they realise that they've got the rest of their life to live. And it's that sort of little snapshot, that moment, that I want to try and get in the song, you know, and really, you know, with the greatest of respect, it's like asking you to do it is probably because you've done most of those things that I think that this guy's done in the song. So, you know, I'm really sort of looking to hear that.
the time.
All the Time in the World is my own personal favourite. I think that might have had a lot to do with the experience we had in New York with Louis Armstrong that afternoon that we recorded it. It wasn't a popular choice at the time because we'd always used, you know, the Tom Joneses, the Nancy Sinatras. And I said, look, it's about a man singing about September of his years. And I thought Louis Armstrong singing We Have All the Time in the World, it just rung true, and Cubby loved the idea. There was no argument. And to work with this guy in the studio, he was the sweetest, humblest guy.
Only love.
We have all the time in the world, time enough for life to unfold all the precious things love has in store. We have all the love in the world.
I think when you're asked to do a Bond song, it's a major event. You really do kind of You write it and then you sort of rewrite it and rewrite it again before you present it to the people, because it's so important. You know the world's going to listen to it, and you know, it's got to be good. It's got to be of a certain kind of quality. It's not just like any other song, any straightforward, pretty song. It has to have that extra bit.
It's a rare occurrence in nature when you can find lyrics as bad as these. You could have done so much with this. But who am I to criticize?
Everybody's got their own ideas of what a hit record should be. I think it's probably why there's always a little bit of a controversy behind the scenes about the song.
Baby, you're the best.
Paul McCartney wrote a song called Live and Let Die, which was the name of the film, with the idea of it being used in the picture. And I took Paul and the group into the studio, Wings, and produced it and did all the voices and so on, and made a proper job of it, like a proper record, which it was. And it was that stage that Harry Saltzman thought it was a demo. He said, now who do you think we should get to sing it? I said, well, you've got Paul McCartney. Yeah. What do you think about Thelma Houston? I said, she's very good. Aretha Franklin? Yeah, she's pretty good too. But I realised I had, with great diplomacy, had to persuade him that Paul McCartney's voice was the one for the film, and if he didn't have Paul, he wouldn't have the song.
Harry Saltzman hated Goldfinger. I was in the office and he said, you know, if we weren't pushed against time, we got to get this goddamn movie out, and if we had more time, I'd certainly throw that song out of the movie, blah, 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 blah. And Guy Hamilton, who was the director, said, Harry, I don't know whether this is a hit or not. He said, I really don't care. He said, but dramatically, when that song comes in and Shirley sings it, it's just the most dramatic, splendid opening. And I said, I love it.
In Diamonds Are Forever, he didn't like touch it, stroke it, and undress it. And I always remember that meeting when he said to John Barry, I don't like it. And John Barry, in a lovely Yorkshire accent, and I'll cut out the swearing words, said, well, what do you know about it, you know? And Harry slammed the door and ran out. And I thought, well, that's the end. I've lost the assignment, you know. But Harry didn't like Diamonds Are Forever. And I don't think he liked many of them. He wasn't really a song man. Although, the good thing about those days of Saltzman and Broccoli, they were leaders.
Good, bad, or indifferent, you walk out of their office at the end of the day, you knew where everything stood. And that is not the case today. There's phone calls, there's faxes, well, this idea, there's that idea. And you say, who is running the show? They say, we want a hit. We want a top 10 record. We want to get the kids in, you know, really. That's not my business. I mean, I'm a musical dramatist for a movie.
Nobody does it half as good as you. Baby, you're the best. You can turn my level down just a tad.
John and Don, they were working in an era when they'd go into a room, write the song, the producer would come in and listen to it, and that'd be it.
'Cause nobody does it better.
The ones that you think are the classics and the greatest actually performed the worst in terms of sales and, you know, and where they got in the charts. I mean, Diamonds Are Forever didn't really get anywhere. Goldfinger was a big hit. The biggest selling one has been the Duran Duran one. You know, that was the only one that was like a big number one.
Meeting you with a view to a kill.
You're dealing with reality now of Hollywood in 1997 and spending $100 million on a movie. And if it was my money, then I'd want to know whoever was kind of, you know, fronting it was someone who could get to the, you know, the most amount of people.
The song for the latest James Bond movie, Tomorrow Never Dies, is sung by multi-platinum selling artist Sheryl Crow. And although David had written the score for the film, the song he wrote for K.D. Lang with Don Black didn't get chosen for the titles, but appears instead over the film's end credits.
So the whole thing with the song was that, I mean, I'd written a song, a lot of people had written songs for the film, because I think, you know, people do, you know, it's like you send them up there and keep your fingers crossed that they might use one of them. So I kind of threw mine in the pot with everyone else's.
There are plenty of good songs that, you know, sometimes the marketing people feel are not going to be the type of thing they would like to have. And of course, you know, the producers and the director and the composer all may have a different view on that. So it's something we have to kind of hash out, and we're kind of always in the middle, trying to come up with what's best for the film.
Filthy habit.
David was passionate to do the score and to get 99% of the score to be his, and, you know, with wonderful references to what John had done in the past. But the songs have, you know, and these things are always little war zones.
He's going through the bombs.
Uptown, I believe.
Uptown? You headed into Harlem, man.
Well, you just keep on the tail of that jukebox, and there's an extra 20 in it for you.
Hey, man, for $20, I'll take you to a Ku Klux Klan cookout.
I actually did the score for one of the early James Bond films. The very first one that Roger Moore did.
Is this the stupid mother that tailed you uptown?
There seems to be some mistake. My name is...
Names is for tombstones, baby. You all take this honky out and waste him, now.
The director was Guy Hamilton, and I breathed a big sigh of relief when he said to me, look, I don't know anything about music, except I know what I want. And I said, God bless you.
Charlie?
You can't ignore the Bond tradition. You must have the Bond style, and I think you have to have some of the Bond harmonies too.
David Arnold was chosen to continue the Bond tradition for Tomorrow Never Dies, the 18th film in the James Bond series. But he brings more to the movie than just a knowledge of what has gone before.
David's music is more traditional in the sense that it's big orchestra, it's large string sections. It's these, you know, the son of John Barry style. To that extent, we would call it traditional, but he uses a lot of rhythms and interesting chord progressions and things that are sort of modern as well.
We share a sense of melody. I like music to be reasonably simple and linear, and I know he does the same. He's not like a tricksy writer who writes, you know, lots of notes and kind of dances around in between bits of action. John always writes with a sense of sort of atmosphere and understanding of the drama of a scene and of a film, which is why I think the music that he writes is so evocative. Tends to capture the atmosphere of a piece rather than underline actions that are happening within it.
For action-adventure films like ours, where there's heroes and villains and big moments and explosions and all that, you need a big sound to complement that kind of film, and that's something that David does very well.
With an orchestra, you can get so many different actually tones and emotions out of it. And the thing that you've got to remember is that there are 85, 90 people playing, and each one of them is creating a performance. and they're giving something to that performance which is emotionally driven, and the sheer amount of air that they shift, you know, I mean, it's a physical thing and an emotional thing, and I think it's like sorely underused in contemporary music orchestras.
It's the same kind of thing that Hans Zimmer does in America, and Hans is the toast of Hollywood and David's the toast of England, I think, but David and Hans are kind of parallel now. He's brought up on synthesizers and computers and has a profound understanding of the mechanics of these things, and it works very well, particularly in the action movies.
Other than playing in his school orchestra, David has no formal training, and so works closely with classical orchestrator Nicholas Dodd.
You mention orchestras, and you do picture someone like Nick, who is like, you know, top hat and tails kind of guy, you know, who is, you know, the classical, you know, background sort of person. But I mean, it's interesting because we are completely different people, but we do like completely agree about music.
Some composers, they say, this is what I want exactly. Now, David and I have the fortune of working a long time together.
T minus 50 seconds.
I mean, David is amazing at coming up with the right theme, and I like to think I can compliment him.
I actually write to the picture, and when I've sort of constructed the piece from start to finish, so I know what the tempos are, I know what the melodies are going to be, I know what the chords are going to be, Nick comes up and he takes the parts down, and then I have to say to him, that's a horn line, that's a flute part, and he kind of expands it from that to that.
Drop it, Mr. Bond, or I drop your friend.
It's over, Stamper. Let her go.
Not between you and me.
T minus 1 minute and counting. James!
I wanted to somehow modernize the whole film, closer to reality, a more contemporary, harder edged. And I wanted to do the same with the music, and I wanted to find somebody who would enjoy and love what was great about the old ones, the great theme and the style and the sort of energy and flourish, and yet make it much more contemporary and give it a kind of fresh start.
I'm just trying to kind of ease it forward a touch, you know, into the 90s, in a way which isn't going to alienate people who feel that Bond is a certain thing.
As part of the modernising process, David brought in shaken and stirred album contributors and Bond fans, Propellerheads, to collaborate on a scene from the movie.
At the same time as he was finishing the Shaken Not Stirred project, was working on the score for the new Bond film, for Tomorrow Never Dies, and in fact we were in the room when he got the call, which was very exciting. The phone went, I was like, oh yeah, great, cool.
So cool.
Got the new Bond film. Shortly after we delivered On Her Majesty's Secret Service, he put it up against one of the scenes in the film at the studios, and they said, oh wow, this is great.
I know whenever I've seen a Bond movie, I've always had a huge expectation about what the music should be and what it shouldn't be.
This car, when you see the car for the first time, he opens the door and he gets given.
There's a point when he moves to Hamburg, and the action starts happening in Germany, where I've gone for more of the sort of drum loop, breakbeat, wah-wah guitar approach, alongside the orchestra at the same time.
Since you've done this, they've actually cut it again, so we're going to have to try and patch it up from somewhere else. But they sent me over a new cut, so I think probably the best thing to do is to see how this is going to work with the new picture, right?
It should work again.
But I don't know what sort of sound effects they're going to put on that, because you've got like a Mercedes with all its tyres blowing out. So I would imagine, like underneath your scratching part, you're going to have like acres and acres of squealing tyres, and
forming rubber.
Yeah, I mean it's really only when you get to a theatre and you see it that you're either elated or disgusted, because you only need to look at it. I mean, like all of these explosions are going to be so enormous. Probably half the time. I should think you probably hear a lot of the drums, but I mean, the orchestra part of it, usually it's the brass which kind of sticks out. So.
Austin! Coming up to you!
It's a daunting proposition, this film, because it has a lot of music, it has vast amounts of sound effects. And it's very easy for it to become monotonous. It's very easy for it just to become a wall of sound.
He's a master at exactly finding the right level. Not too much and not too little.
He's created a score that is really clever, I think, and smart about keeping old and bringing in new and giving it an energy and vitality.
How long have you waited in your life to play that in a Bond film?
3 months and 4 days.
What's really annoying, is because I don't know how many times I do that in this film, but I still haven't played it yet.
You're joking?
No.
You played it? Did you not play it on one bit?
No, because it's like the problem is I can't be in with the orchestra while we're playing it, because I've got to be like with the directors and the producers and actually kind of managing the whole thing. So I have to have another guitar player in there playing with the orchestra. Oh. And I thought about replacing it, with my own one, but then I thought it's not fair on him,
No, but no, it's in the album,
listen,
isn't it?
If we do another one.
I think the Bond theme is one that the audience is something they want to hear and they like to hear in the film, and it sort of works within the action sequences.
Beg your pardon? Forgot to knock.
Eric Serra, who did our last film, did not use it as liberally as some others. I think there was a feeling that we should go back to more of the Bond theme.
With Goldeneye, it was the first Bond film for a long time. It was a new Bond, so they wanted to like create something new for him. I know they were trying to go a more sort of electronic route, you know, and a more experimental route with Eric. My take on it at the time, as it still is now, is that if you get a new Bond, all you do is surround him with old Bond paraphernalia, and people kind of buy that into that a lot more than they would, you know, if he'd have turned up with a, you know, with a moustache perhaps, or smoking a pipe. All the time I was thinking, God, if I was doing it, I would marry that new feel with you know, one foot in the 60s and one in the 90s. I really did sit and watch this film reel by reel, and whenever there was like a Bond moment, I'd want to hear Bond music, you know, and not kind of run away from the obvious. Whenever he was in a fix or something, he'd press a button and something would happen. And, you know, it's that kind of convenient drama that I wanted to get back into the music. Because otherwise you've just got another action film. The best part of scoring a film is finishing. It takes a lot out of you because I put a lot into it. So emotionally it's very draining, physically it's very draining. You know, you can feel the stress levels actually doing something to you physically. You know, you can actually feel it kind of crumpling things up inside of you, and it's like, it's really uncomfortable. So it's nice to be able to see it kind of filtering out a little bit, and then actually getting the stuff out in the world, you know, so everything that you've done for the last year starts getting a bit of an airing, and you begin to realise, you know, whether or not you've done the right thing. But I think regardless of that, you know, I mean, I really like the album, and I really like the way that's happened. So, you know, regardless if it does well or if it doesn't do well, I still think it's a good record. And I think with the film score as well, you know, I mean, I think I've sort of found a way forward with Bond music, and I know that, you know, they asked me to do the next one, so, you know, I think I found a sort of way to do it now.
You've got to keep him ballsy and muscular and out there.
He's just a wild maverick, isn't he? He's got a license to kill. There aren't that many people with a license to kill, is there? And he's got it. He's the man.
But I think my favourite would probably be You Only Live Twice, just because it was the first one that I saw.
James Bond will go on for as long as there's stories to tell. I just hope they don't try to get them too high-tech, and let's stay with the men.
I think if you believe in what you write, it's going to shine through someday, you know. Cool.